Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Welcome to Stop Now. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. It is always good to be able to talk to you folks out there, especially when we are able to reach out and bring in different guests onto the program to lend their expertise to some of the things that we've been talking about. And so it is my pleasure this week to bring in somebody that can enlighten us, when it comes to the issue of human trafficking, the modern day slavery that we've been talking about here on the channel. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Amanda Garza, who is here to help me understand and help us all understand what we can actually do to help solve this problem. Amanda, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, Nate. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be on here and to be able to speak with you guys on this very important topic that I don't feel sometimes is talked about very often, but it is a very important topic and it should be talked about.
So, Amanda, before we get deep into the topic, can you kind of give the viewers a little bit of background about yourself and how you came to be so passionate about this cause?
Currently, I am a victims advocate with the Hidalgo County Criminal District Attorney's Office. And so I assist victims of crime there. My passion for human trafficking itself came from me being a victim of human trafficking myself. And so with that being said, I know how important it is. And when I became a victim of human trafficking, which now I'm a survivor, the topic wasn't being discussed the way it is now. And so I know for myself, I had to go into a college and see a sign just to be able to identify with what happened to me and that it was a crime, what had happened to me. And so I know the importance of outreach, awareness. And so that's what drives me to do this type of work.
And when you talk about, being a survivor, say does that because obviously I believe it probably does, but how does it change the way that you approach, fighting this issue versus maybe somebody that's, studied about it or, hadn't experienced it? Like, what does that actually going through that? Like, how has that aided you in the way that you fight this?
Being that I actually lived it and I experienced it for myself, I am able to identify with the victims and it encourages me, it gives me a greater strength, a greater force to combat this human trafficking crime because I went through it, I lived it, I experienced it. And not only that, I know what it takes. I know how it really destroyed my life and how long it's taken me, and it's still taking me to recover from such a heinous crime. And so with that being said, I know what I went through and I went through it and I wouldn't wish this on anyone. And so whatever I can do to help somebody, assist somebody from becoming a victim of human trafficking, that's what I will do. But to answer your question, because I went through everything, I think that I have a little more drive towards fighting the issue as opposed to somebody who's reading about it, because you can read about something all day long, but unless you've lived it and you've gone through it, you're not really going to be able to identify with the topic or with victims that are going through that. And so I think it's so important for survivors such as myself to speak out and to get dedicated and devoted into combating this type of crime.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about, the victims, Amanda, are there individuals who are more vulnerable than others, or like who do the victims tend to be in situations like this with human trafficking?
Yeah, so there is a sort of like, I guess you would say, a high index um, type of person, which would be poverty,
Mm,
low income people. It could be children coming from broken homes. It could be minorities, Mexican American, Hispanic, Blacks,
mm,
African Americans. They are at a higher risk. Victims of child abuse and
mhm,
sexual abuse are a big one as well.
mm. So when we kind of look back at this past year, because I feel like as much as everybody kind of wants to move on from 2020, I think that there are going to be effects that we feel, as a society for a while from this, and we're still going through it with the pandemic. Do you feel like in some ways, like the issue of human trafficking, the issue of, sex trafficking, the issue of modern day slavery, do you feel like that might have even gotten worse because of what we all went through last year?
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm sure it did. It invited the time for these um, human traffickers to have more time with their victims and isolate their victims,
Mm, hmm.
since everybody was, scared about the COVID, and there was a lot of regulations put in place where people, such as curfews and things like that, um, it allows more time for the victim to be around their trafficker.
I guess I want to take a step back, before we go further, Amanda, and for the viewer out there who might be watching and thinking about this issue, like, can you give us like what your definition of human trafficking is, and particularly in the way it pertains to your field of expertise?
And so human trafficking is the crime against an individual by use of force, fraud, or coercion. Um, and it is used against that person for a personal gain or a value,
Mm.
for the person to gain some form of value, something of value or monetary value.
So, oh, go
Maybe
ahead.
just to introduce, we have another co-host. He has joined us. His name is Ashfaq Ismail. He's a blogger and writer for us. Amanda, just to give you some context, so that you know, who has joined in the meetings. You should not be surprised. We just wanted to get more journalistic point of questioning where media can report this, and so that is one of the reasons. So on that, uh, can you tell us more about your story, Amanda? Like, it is heartbreaking to see that, uh, someone like you has gone through that, and how to identify that. Like you yourself said, correct me if I'm wrong, you said like you were not able to identify yourself as a victim for some time, right? And then how did
Mm.
you come to that conclusion? What was your actual story?
So yes, it did take me a long time to identify myself as a victim because first of all, there was not enough education, um, or awareness out there on the topic of human trafficking. So that's one. And then because my trafficker to believe that he cared for me, he
Mm.
loved me. In my mind, I did not think that what he was doing to me was wrong. I thought we were a team. I thought we were together. I thought we were going to be together forever. And what made me realize that what he was doing to me to benefit for his own personal gain was wrong. And what made me realize that was getting away from him.
Mm.
My sister is the one who actually convinced me a little bit to open my eyes and show me that I was being brainwashed. And so I was able to finally, I said, I don't want to, this is not the life that I want to live. This is not what I pictured for myself. And when I noticed that he didn't really care about me, he kept everything for himself. He took everything. He didn't want to give me anything. So when I realized that, I said, this is enough. I don't want to do this. And so I left after 10 years. It took me 10 years to finally wake up. I was a minor. I was only 17 years old. And I was raised in a home with, I had a mother and a father, but they were divorced. And my father, he was very distant. And so the way that I was able to self-identify and realize what had happened to me was getting my education. So when I separated myself from the life, I decided, okay, what am I going to do now? I need to make an income. I need to do something with myself. So I decided to go to school and pursue my education. And I did that for a couple years into getting my education. I still didn't know I was a victim. I didn't realize that I was a victim until my third year, or maybe my second year into college. Walking into a college building and seeing the flyers that they, the advertisement flyers, the awareness flyers of human trafficking, and just what it said on there, fraud, coercion, personal gain, and it all came together. And I'm like, wow, like this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. And I was just like kind of in shock, because for so long I believed everything was normal. I thought it was normal. And I didn't see anything that he was doing was wrong. He totally captivated me from a young age, a very young age, a tender age. And he molded my mind. He made sure to instill in me that going to school, getting your education was of no value, and that you would never be able to be successful doing it that way. And so he had programmed me from a very young age, and I think that's why it took so long for me to get away from him.
So how common is that, Amanda? Like the idea, because I think when a lot of people think about this issue, when they think about the trafficker, they think about the abuser, they think, this big, distant, scary figure. But how often is it in your situation, similar to your situation, like somebody that the victim knows, somebody that the victim trusts and believes in?
The appearance, people think that the traffickers are scary and
Like this, like I think they feel like this anonymous villain type figure, where like with your story, this is somebody that you had a relationship with, that you trusted, that you felt you could depend on. Like how often are the victims actually are the abusers the people that the victims know, people that the victims are familiar with?
so there is a lot of incidents where the abusers are family members, even parents. But in my case, this was not anything familial as far as in my immediate family or my family. This was just a man that I met out one night, and somebody that I ended up getting involved with, and then who ended up trafficking me. But he was not scary. He was not some kind of villain. He was a very nice, nice looking man, very clean cut, dressed nice, talked very nice, and seemed very educated. Now that I look back, he was very smart in what he did. He's very smart in what he does. And he does not have the typical type of profile, I guess, that people think of
Mhm.
an abuser or a human trafficker, to be like or look like, drove a nice vehicle. So yeah.
So, Amanda, on that note, when you say that, like, how do we then spot those kind of people who exploit, right? In your case, you are saying you are vulnerable and your situations made you to fall victim and be trapped by this. Because my understanding of what you said about your family, your parents separated, and you were kind of a target, a victim where he was easily able to exploit you. So you had some good moments and you believed that was truth, and then you realized that like you are being exploited after a time, then you got out of it. So is that fall under domestic violence or other categories? Like how do you like justify that? Because they say like a lot of I mean, legal terms, when you go to lawyers or the agencies that is responsible to prosecute, they say that like, oh, this doesn't fall under human trafficking. It is a domestic violence or it is an abuse. You had a relationship, it was consensual, or it's not a sex trafficking. Uh, Help us
Well,
understand like how do you categorize that as what you are trying to do.
well, the fact that he was, his whole objective with my relationship with him, with our relationship, was his gain, his monetary gain.
Mhm.
And so I think that's the key point here, is that he gained a profit off of me. He profited something off of me. Um, and I think that's the really the main key to it.
Yeah, hi. So I want to ask one question. Didn't you get some warning signs? Because I guess you had been in a relationship for over a long period of time, but in between somewhere, didn't you get some warning signs?
If he was what?
Now, if he was
I'm
a
ask,
trafficker, right? If he's trying to traffic you, or did he do this to somebody else? Did you see any warning signs, red flags in your
yes,
relationship?
yes, because somewhere at some point of time he might have done something suspicious.
Oh, yes. So I did meet other women that he did have, and that just made it even more reason, more made me even more comfortable to be there and for it to happen to me, because I'm seeing other women doing it. Why not me? And I see all this money. Why not join in, right? That's what I was thinking. And that's what made me even more comfortable, seeing all the other women um, with him and partaking in the trafficking. And so, yes, there were signs such as that. Um, but again, I was young, and I was very gullible and very easily to persuade.
That is something like Nate. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna
Vulnerable.
say, uh, in terms of that, right? In terms of a lot of these victims being young and vulnerable and gullible, to use your words, like how then do we, what I mean, like we as in us, as in society, as in the legal system, like how do we help these people if they are stuck in this situation that they can't quite get out of?
Well, one of the main things is going to the schools and educating the children about this topic, because if you're not aware that this type of thing exists, then you don't know, and you don't know how to protect yourself from it. And so if you don't have parents that are aware of this, they don't know either. They're just as confused. They don't know how to teach you anything that they don't know. And so
Mhm.
I think that's one of the main keys is a awareness, getting out there and getting into the school setting and making sure presentations are presented so the students are aware, the children are aware of this, and it can happen to them.
So in terms of, I know earlier you spoke about, this is something that can affect anybody, regardless of race or religion or anything like that. But specifically when it comes to, minorities that you talked about earlier, like, black people or, our Latinx people, like, do you feel like the system is doing enough to look out for those folks? Because I think the answer is probably no, but I wonder with somebody with the expertise that you have, do you feel like the system is doing enough?
And when you say system, what do you mean? Like what system?
I guess whether you're talking about the law, whether you're talking about, I guess like CPS, like the Child Protective Services, like the agencies that are supposed to be looking out for our kids. I don't feel like they're doing their job, and maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, I would like to be corrected.
Oh, um, it's one of those things that it's really hard to say, because there's so much that goes on, and there's so many ways that your likelihood of being a victim of human trafficking can increase. I think it really sets with the schools.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the teachers need to be aware, and they need to be the ones to speak out, because our children are with them most of the time.
Right.
And so if anybody I would look at, it would be the school setting. That, and also the doctor, the medical setting as well. As far as, do I think that enough is being done? No, I don't think that enough is being done. I know that this topic has gained a lot of, how would you say, attraction lately, within the last, 10 years maybe?
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's being enough done, and I know that more can be done and should be done, because I'm here to speak on behalf of all victims and all survivors, that this type of crime is one that is it's going to be like a lifelong recovery for me. And it's one that it really does affect a person's life, and can really damage somebody's life. And so I say that enough isn't being done, and there can always be more improvement. There's always room for improvement.
And I like that you brought up the fact that, again, this is something that, in terms of people talking about it, it's relatively new, but it's been going on for a long time. And we had a guest on a few weeks ago that was like, this stuff was happening back in the 80s and the 90s, but folks didn't talk about it, particularly when it came to black kids and brown kids that were getting wrapped up in this. And the general public, the media, didn't care or chose not to cover it. So I'm so thankful that you were able to have some time with us this week, Amanda, to tell your story and to talk about this issue that definitely deserves more attention. So for those out there who maybe trying to figure out things in their life, like they might be in a situation similar to what you were in, or maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're an educator that wants to help and educate, like you said earlier, and they want to get in touch with you. How were they, if I could talk, how are they able to reach out and contact you?
So they can contact me through my email. And so there's many different factors to look for in a victim of human trafficking, sexual exploitation, because there's also labor trafficking. And that's a whole, it's kind of the same thing, but excluding the sexual part. They're just doing another form of work. And so I just feel like, hopefully, I know everybody, there's a lot of people trying to do their part, and they're doing a good job of trying to navigate. on how to do that, but I think more can be done, and a lot has to do with the survivors. The survivors need to, those are the ones who can tell you more and speak out more about what they've experienced and what they've seen throughout the time that they were trafficked.
Again, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us this week. Amanda Garza, ladies and gentlemen, we thank her for her time, and we thank you for watching this week.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. It's a true blessing.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Stop, listen, share. Everyone can make a difference. We are on a mission. Everyone should do something greater in their lifetime. Change the future. Be a proud member. Join us to support, volunteer, and donate.